Like there are ways, if I didn't want to be at Croke Park, if I was in Croke Park and I didn't want Garth Brooks there, I would be choosing my timing a wee bit better. I wouldn't be bringing the opprobrium of the entire nation and the international folk music community on my head. I'd be doing it different. We're talking about silly things, and on we go. Feargal McCormack, our fiscal guru, with me this morning, and you're most welcome. You've been travelling since I've seen you last.
Yes, unfortunately, both the last 2 Tuesdays I've been once in London and once in Edinburgh in business.
Isn't it great to get on the flight and go over in the morning and come back in the evening?
Get you up out of the bed early in the morning.
It does. It's a bit like this program. Get you out of bed early in the morning. Early morning's good, isn't it? Because it gives you a chance to establish an equilibrium for the day. That moment when you're dressing, showering, having a light breakfast, you're there in control of everything and ready to go forward and make a difference.
I'm glad you're sharing your experience with us, Rowan. I'm a morning person by general, but not your type of morning.
No, my morning.
I can assure you I'm up 7 days a week before 7:15.
Oh, well, that's grand. That is good. But I'm as early as I am out of fear. Because even having done this work for 50 years, I'm still fearful that I mightn't get it right. I take nothing for granted. I'm up and doing it. The alarm, as I say, 3:45 in the morning, I'm up, 3:30.
Yeah, well, you're doing a very good job. I think the more important thing is at your stage in life, that you're still making a proactive contribution and that you're meeting people on a regular basis and that you are challenged.
Absolutely.
And I think, there's a lot to be said for that. I hope I'm as challenged when I'm your age.
I still make mistakes at 70. Isn't that crazy?
Well, for the person who never made a mistake, never got anywhere.
I know. But
we always have to continuously
learn. I would have
learn.
thought in business that I should have long ago learnt not to go to war. There's no point in it. But I keep feeling, let me get my horse and my lance and show me a windmill to have a go at.
Well, I don't know about that, but what I do know about is that anyone who's so arrogant or so complacent to suggest that they've made their last mistake's a fool. Yeah. And I think we all, particularly in business, we must always have that sense of nervousness because business is about taking risks, and sometimes you get it wrong.
Where did Tony O'Reilly get it wrong?
Well, I think first of all one needs to acknowledge the very positive contribution he has made to this island, indeed to the world. And for any mistakes he's made, I can tell you the benefits have far outweighed those in terms of what people, particularly in Northern Ireland, and indeed the broader Ireland, have benefited from his generosity over the years, and more importantly, from the generosity he leveraged in from other successful businessmen through the Ireland Fund, etc. Look, none of us can be sure that we won't at times hit the bumpy road.
Oh, yeah.
And I think to be very fair, O'Reilly was a phenomenally successful businessman, and if you look at the businesses he ran himself, they were very successful, such as Kerrygold, Heinz, etc. I think what happened was, which happens, we all do it now again, from a sentimental point of view, you start putting money here or there.
Waterford Crystal.
Waterford Crystal and independent newspapers. Waterford Crystal in particular, it's alleged, he lost over 400 million. 400 million cash, a lot of money to lose. And if you think about it, he really wasn't there in an operational point of view. He was lending it, and he wouldn't have been able. He was running Heinz at the time, and that was his full-time job. And maybe there is a lesson there that that sentiment, you can play around with a little bit. You can play around with as much as the gambling. You can play around with as much as you can afford to lose. But in hindsight, I think he'd be the first to admit the two operations that have cost him very dearly were independent newspapers, not necessarily Irish independent, but independent newspapers, particularly the London Independent, and more importantly, Waterford Crystal. My colleague Paddy Hardy has a famous saying, and I don't totally agree with him here, but if he had taken himself and got the the wedding list out of any of our shops 10 years ago, he would have realised that Waterford Crystal and formal products like Denby weren't to the same demand. They were looking for a more casual eating style, which could be those products, for example, Bleak Living has moved into a very successful casual product. But the point being that perhaps we were pumping money into something that the market trend was changing, and we should have taken the brand and worked on the brand as opposed to kept with the product.
Bleak did that. Bleak Living, they redesigned, they reinvented themselves, and they came out with a new kind of modern living lifestyle kind of product. So they stayed with the brand but changed the product. It's exactly what you're saying, and they succeeded.
And they also changed, to be honest with you, the first to admit, they also changed with the production techniques, because one of the issues of the crystal business or the pottery business is to be unbelievably skilled, it takes 15 to 20 years. But by the time, if you have an age workforce and you have an awful lot of them at 45 plus, they're all earning phenomenal money. But maybe you do not have enough output for that level of skill, so they're over-skilled sometimes for the work they're doing.
Tony probably would have been better staying with Heinz, but again his heart took him back to Ireland.
Well, he did stay with
Heinz, but he left to come back to Ireland.
No, he did. No, that's not totally right. What happened was he stayed with Heinz and made a fortune with Heinz, and he grew Heinz very big. And it was the money he was making on the likes of Heinz, he was investing elsewhere.
But at one point he came back, didn't he?
No, he came back regularly, but just to oversee his investments, right?
Yes.
In mining, in independent newspapers, in Waterford in particular. Waterford cost him 400 million. No,
400 million. He owes 198.
I think the big issue here is to be careful. Tony O'Reilly has had a lot of successes. I believe he's 78. He may still have more successes to come.
Yes.
He has made mistakes. But I keep saying, that's business.
That's business.
I
love that part of you.
We will all have the ups and downs. And that's why you never kick a person when they're down. You acknowledge the mistakes. In America at present, this wouldn't be an issue.
Indeed it wouldn't.
Somebody would be saying, Tony, come for coffee. What are you doing tomorrow? I want to back you tomorrow because you would have learned from your mistakes.
But I remember a friend of mine going to the master, Basil, he founded the Alliance Party with me. He was the master of bankruptcy in Belfast.
Basil Glass.
Basil Glass. And I went with my friend. He was going bankrupt, and I went in with him, and we were sitting there. And this tells the story. Again, what you're saying. We were sat there, and it came to my friend's, he was called, and my friend's solicitor from Newry hadn't arrived. So I had to stand up. I said, Master, and Basil knew me from the Alliance days, but that was neither here nor there. But I said, Master, the solicitors spent too long in bed this morning, didn't give enough credence to the traffic on the Donegal Road, so would you put us back until 2 o'clock? So we did, blah, 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 blah. And that lunchtime, we were out having the lunch in the restaurant of Paul Rankin in Shaftesbury Square, whatever it was called at the beginning.
I tell you, you didn't let the fact you were going to be in the recovery court put off your stomach.
Do you know who was sitting across from us? Basil. And Basil, who had just made my friend bankrupt, said, hello, Rowan, how are you? Hello, sir, how are you? So it's the American thing. Get on with it, move on.
Yeah, no,
but the lovely thing about you, McCormack, is this. If I was asked to characterize you, I would say many things, but the most important and quintessential thing I'd say about you is that Feargal McCormack is a man who will support the downtrodden, the man who's down, knowing that there is a pathway back up again.
Well, I hope so. But I think, to be fair, there's one other thing we need to be careful about, Ron. While saying we rightly share our sympathy with Tony O'Reilly, which is correct, it's also important to appreciate that there's no more sad experience than as a creditor of a failed business, having to take the impact of writing off money owed to you. And I'll explain to you why. I can go back to my own father's case 30, 40 years ago. I remember he did the case at Phoenix Park, the steel for Gallagher. And he just finished, he worked all Easters, he never worked as hard. And Gallagher went bust on Easter Tuesday. I'm sure, again, unlucky. But the impact that had on my father's business was phenomenal. Now, thankfully, I was able to recover and keep going. But one of the saddest things equally, and this is quite often is forgotten, is the genuine creditors, the subcontractors, people who've supplied services in good faith and supplied them well. And when somebody goes under, they don't get paid. So all of a sudden, you could have done a tremendous job, and your business could be wrecked due to no factor of yours because you didn't get paid for work you did. So whilst acknowledging the Tony O'Reilly is a very sad case, I wouldn't want to be interpreted as being flippant.
Oh no,
not acknowledging
not at all.
The sad. There is sadness here on both sides.
Yeah.
You know, the reality is, in this case, he happens to owe the bank money, but you know, the banks ultimately, if the banks keep losing money, and they're Irish banks, the taxpayers' cost goes up, or alternatively, you know, the bank loses jobs.
What does it actually mean for him? He'll not end up living in a council house in Dalkey.
Well, I think it's always perhaps not wise to talk about an individual. I don't know Tony O'Reilly personally. I've met him a few times. I've met his sons a few times. But I think perhaps, hopefully he's fortunate enough in that his wife is a wealthy lady.
Yes.
And I don't think you'll see a massive change in lifestyle. I think he's handled it very well, by the way. I think he has maybe taught us a few lessons that you just accept these things. You can't change them. And I think the biggest lesson comes back to the one we keep referring to. And we're seeing it even in Northern Ireland today. We still haven't learned that looking back in anger achieves nothing.
I'm trying not to be angry as I remember the quote of the Orange Order in the Irish News this week. Our protests against the prohibition on the parade in Ardoyne will continue long after the 12th and will have an effect on the politics and the governance of Northern Ireland. What is that kind of another season of mayhem? What is that going to do to our economy?
Well, I don't know. I think we certainly need calmed heads. I see our local minister, Danny Kennedy, wants to put it on the agenda today of the executive. Look, if we stand back and look at this, for whatever reason, we need common sense all around. But the only reason why there is a parades commission is because we as two communities couldn't agree. And the sad fact is that at Christmas time this year, it was the same unionist parties who walked out of Haas. Now, ignoring politics here, because those people represent very decent people and are decent people themselves. But we have to recognise that we have to take responsibility seriously. And the sooner we create the environment where we all realise there must be compromise. And there has to be compromise. And, nobody loses out by compromise. But if one raises the stakes high, it makes compromise a lot more difficult. And what I would be urging people again to do is to stay calm. I mean, I think unfortunately what we're really doing is we're turning off. Outside of Belfast, they don't appreciate what they're doing. They're turning more and more people off politics. But unfortunately, it's having a knock-on effect on economics. If you think about it, we should be focusing on the future all the time. Our leaders for the last 6 months, probably a year, have been focusing on the past.
You have difficulty saying that because you have such respect for these people.
Yeah, I understand. You have to bring your people with you, and you got to remember. I've said this to you before. Most of the politicians I meet many of them on a personal basis are very nice people, and to be honest, we are able. But unfortunately, they're engaging in activity which is not to the long-term benefit. And I keep stressing that whenever they took risks in the past, they were rewarded. And maybe we need them to take risks again.
Irish News today talking about, who is it? It's Angela McGowan writing about the Irish economy. How is it performing? How is it performing?
I didn't get a chance to read Angela's article.
I wouldn't be interested in her. I want to know you, because you are the ultimate guru, dear boy.
Well, no, Angela McGowan is somebody I have an awful lot of time for, a very able lady. I think there's no doubt that the Irish economy is picking up. You can see it. It's good for us to see. I think the lessons of the past hopefully will be learned. I hope we don't have wage inflation. If we do, we'll be. What has happened here is Ireland is now competitive again. To refer, I said this to you before, but during the worst times of the recession, the Irish governments, both the former government and the current government, deserve credit. In that they didn't cut their investment into science and R&D. And I think they'll reap the benefits of that in the next 5 to 10 years. I think you have education, you have a very good private sector industrial base. And the main problem with the Irish economy will be debt and also private mortgage debt and how they deal with that.
We've done very well here. I don't know if you were, before you went on your travels, Brian Conlon and the jobs at First Derivatives.
Yeah, right.
Huge success. Oh, let me do that for you. There we are. It's China. The thinker must be
around that time. Around that time,
are you in? You are.
The First Derivatives announcement was made. I think that was a tremendous story. Great vote of confidence in First Derivatives and in Neri. And I have the great privilege of having accompanied Brian Conlon when he was starting off in business to a few of the meetings.
Did you get a sense that Brian Conlon in those early days was bound for greatness?
You can never envisage that somebody would be where they finish, but you could never not have concluded that Brian Conlon was going to be an entrepreneurial success. The guy had ability oozing out of him. He had values. Now, where that takes you, you can never say with definity or certainty. But I remember very well a key meeting I had with Brian Conlon and the then IDB in Belfast, and I remember making the comment to someone, look, I don't understand what he's doing, because I didn't at that stage, but I'd back the man.
And he's let no one down. He's just.
But no one could ever have
gone.
envisaged, and Brian Conlon would be the first to admit that he couldn't have got to where he is now without a team.
Yep.
You know, the reality is
the
you can
secret.
achieve so far, but thereafter you need a bit of luck and you need a team. But isn't it phenomenal to think that out of this city, we're now exporting our services around the world? And you add that to the Norbrook stories and the ABP stories and the MJM Marine stories. And another great story is Hill Engineering. They're doing phenomenally successful at present. A great story out at, they're making hitches going around the world. Hill Engineering is a company that goes under the radar now and again. Won the Queen's Export Award this year. That's a phenomenal achievement, Rowan. That's a very hard thing to win.
Indeed.
And it's great. Ian Hill there runs a tremendous operation out at Carnbean.
How about, it's now, God help us, it's a few months now since we lost one of our greatest, Lord Ballyedmund. How's Norbrook doing at the moment without him?
Well, again, to be honest, I'm not close enough.
No, of course not.
And if I was, I couldn't talk.
No, of course not.
But again, I believe that one of his credits is that he built a very strong team around him. And hopefully Norbrook will go from strength to strength.
Yes, because it's our cornerstone in many ways. It's the
very
rock
key,
on which we built.
It's a very important employer in the area. It's in a very important sector. Very high value added employment opportunities, and therefore we want to encourage it.
New jobs, where are they? They're in Moy Park. Chickens. Buck, 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 buck. What are we getting there? We have 628 jobs created over 3 sites for Moy Park. So again, expansion is the name of the day. Export
markets again, owned by a Brazilian company now. Obviously, originally. Craigavon and Ballymena, Ballymena was the former O'Keehan's factory, and they're now extending a fair bit into Dungannon. They're doing a lot of building in Dungannon. So another great success story, and it's good to see it. The chief executive is currently a female.
Wow.
Which is very Janet McCollum. Very good to see somebody of that calibre.
Well, indeed. No glass ceiling there.
Leading such a successful operation.
You've been with the News Hub's Economic Corner. I've been talking, the great privilege of talking to the fiscal guru, Feargal McCormack. Thank you.
I'm not sure about fiscal guru, but
I am. Go well.
We will keep trying.
We will. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Some music.